Hi there, and welcome to this lecture. In this video, we're going to explore one of Perl's data structures, scalars. Let's begin. So, what are scalars? Well, scalars are a single unit of data, meaning they can hold one of undefined, number, decimal number, string, or reference. But don't worry about reference for now. You define a scalar by saying my $sign, let's say test equals 1. So we assign a number of value 1 to a variable scalar named test. As mentioned before, you can also assign, let's say, my string equals hello, and as well as assigning my decimal equals 1.22. So one thing to note is that scalar names are unique. So if I try to say my test equals 1, save this, and I try to run it in my console by Perl, script.pl is going to say my variable test marks earlier declaration in same scope. And what this means is basically it's saying that, looks like you did define a variable named test, and you're trying to define a variable which is called test again. You might be doing something wrong. And in this case, this is quite true. We are defining my test variable twice, and it does not make a lot of sense. On that note, it's worth mentioning that the variables are also case sensitive. So if I said my capital test equals 1, save this, run the Perl script.pl, I'm going to see no warnings. And this is because I have a test variable defined with a lowercase t and another variable called test with the same value but defined with capital T. So technically the variable names are not the same because one is with a lowercase t and the other one is with the uppercase t. Let's look at some variable operations. Let's start out with the numbers. For example, I'm going to remove string for now, and I am going to print out a test plus decimal. Dot console, printed out, I'm seeing 2.22. So what we did there, we added test variable value 1 with decimal variable value 1.22. And what we got in the end is 2.22. We can also do the same thing with the subtraction. So if I say test minus decimal, I go back to the console, I rerun the script file, what I'm going to see is minus 0.22. And that makes sense because 1 minus 1.22 equals minus 0.22. You can also do multiplication, which is 1 times 0.122. Rerun this, and it's the same as 1.22. And you can do division as well. So test, which is 1 divided by 1.22, go to the console, rerun the Perl script file. You're going to see a very ambiguous number, but let's just assume this is right. Probably it's going to make more sense if we say test equals 20 and we divide it by 5, which should give us 4. And yes, here we go. We see number 4 printed out to our console. Now let's look at the strings. Let's reintroduce our variable named string equals hello. There are a couple of things you can do with the strings. For example, so if I have a string variable, so variable named string and number 2 equals hello 2, I can print out string and concatenate it with this dot notation with string 2. Save this, rerun our Perl script file, and I'm going to see hello concatenated with hello 2. So another thing I can do with strings is I can interpolate them. For example, I could convert string 2 with double quotation marks and say hello 2 space string variable, save this, and I'm going to replace the print statement with only string 2. Save this, go to the console, run perl script.pl, and I'm going to see hello2 value, which comes from here, space, and the value of string. You can also use special variables in your strings, such as a break line. You might have noticed that in our console, usually when we run our script, we're going to end up with the terminal input at the end of what we printed. It's not quite great. So what we probably want to introduce is a new line. And how you can add a new line is by adding backslash n. We save this, we rerun our script, and what you're going to see now, this is the value we printed out, followed by new line. So my terminal input is on the next line. One thing to note, this is only usable when you're using double quotes. This will not work for single quotes. What I mean is, if I would say backslash n in my variable string, and I would try to print this out, what I'm actually going to see is the hello2 value, which we see here, and the variable hello, which holds hello backslash n, which is just a string. So you cannot use these special variables in strings which have single quotation marks. You can also use special variables such as \t, which stands for tab. We rerun our Perl script file, and what we're going to see is there is a slight extra break here, but it's not that quite visible. So if we add, let's say, two more backslashes t and rerun the file, yes, this is much more visible. We can see that we have inserted tabs here. So let's try to concatenate a number with a string. So I'm going to remove the string 2, and I'm going to say my scalar, and let's call it a number, just a scalar name, equals 1. And we try to print out string concatenated with variable number. And let's also add that break line here, which is backslash n. And let's run this. So Perl script.pl. And what we're going to see here is the hello value, which is in the string because we left the backslash n here, and followed by number 1. So when you're trying to concatenate a string with a number, Perl is going to be smart enough to understand that what you actually want to do, you want to convert the number to string and concatenate that together. But what happens if we try to, let's say, sum variable number and variable string? Let's do that. Let's replace string dot notation for which is concatenation with plus, and let's still leave the dot backslash n for the new line, and let's save that. Let's go back to the console, rerun it, and it's going to say argument hello isn't numeric in addition. So this means that Perl is smart enough to figure out that you're trying to use a number which is in variable number, and you're trying to add it to a variable called string, which holds a string, and it doesn't seem quite right because you are trying to sum up a string with a number. One final thing to add is, for example, if you wanted to print a double quoted string, such as hello, and use a variable, let's say number, but you don't really want to print out the value of this variable, but you literally want to say hello $number. So you can do this by backslash before the variable sigil, and it's going to escape your variable in the double quotes. Let's save this, go back to the console, save Perl script.pl, and here we go. We see hello $number. So this variable, number 1, wasn't interpreted inside the double quoted string. So hopefully it's a lot clearer what is a scalar in Perl, how you create and assign values to scalars, including doing some basic operations such as adding numeric values and concatenating strings. I hope you found this video useful, and I'll see you at the next one.